As Americans and the world wait anxiously for the final results of the 2020 presidential election, President Donald Trump's campaign is heading to court to dispute the election results. Trump, who prematurely declared victory on Wednesday, is now demanding a stop to vote counting as Biden maintains a lead in the electoral votes. According to Reuters, Biden has 243 electoral college votes, while Trump is behind with 214. The first to receive 270 votes will win the election.
Count every vote! Every vote counts!
The United States is known for having one of the best electoral systems in the world.
Peaceful transfer of power has been a core part of the American successful experiment with democracy over the last 200 years.
But a flip of the 2020 election primary results to favor Joe Biden has led Donald Trump to cast doubt on the process.
A president refuses to step down when he loses the vote. That creates a tremendous destabilizing effect on the democracy. And then lots of other actors within the democracy have to decide what they're going to do.
Trump has accused Biden of voter fraud and has filed a lawsuit to stop vote counting in some key states.
20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years of one-party rule leads to corruption of all kinds. Voter fraud is one of the biggest because that's how you keep your power. But we're not going to let them get away with it. They're not going to steal this election.
But some Americans are not having it. Protesters in Manhattan, Minneapolis, and Boston took to the streets to demand that states count all ballots in the presidential election.
This is a critical time for the country where a fascist president is trying to stage a coup, and we're here to say that every vote must be counted.
Residents in one of the key states, Pennsylvania, share their views on Trump's attempt to stop counting.
Trump is a madman. He's out of control. You know, I hope we win Joe Biden because I'm a Democrat.
If he loses in any type of way, he's not going to lose graciously. He's going to make a big deal about it. He was cheated in any type of way.
Trump has also called for a recount in Wisconsin, a state won by Biden. Some residents from Kenosha City support Trump, while others say he must let it go and let go of the White House.
I'm actually shocked he's won, and I agree on a new count, a recount, definitely. I'm happy that Biden's winning. I don't usually like to talk politics with people, but I hope Biden wins.
Meanwhile, Joe Biden has launched the Biden Fight Fund to ensure every vote is counted in all states.
The U.S. elections have undoubtedly brought the winner-takes-all electoral college system into sharp focus. And back home, the Constitutional Court in June declared parts of the Electoral Act unconstitutional. It found against the law stripping citizens of the right not to affiliate themselves to a political party and ruled individual candidates should be allowed to stand for office. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Pierre de Vos. Professor de Vos, good evening, and thank you so much for your time. An interesting piece that you've penned, and unfortunately, there's so many technicalities that we might not be able to get through in just, the segment of the interview. But effectively, you're comparing the different electoral systems. You take a look at the US, the House of Commons in the UK, and you bring it back home to South Africa and ask the question, what kind of electoral system would work best for us as we consider some of the changes that would need to be effected? Well, let's discuss maybe some of the pros and cons of the US and the UK system right now.
Yes, so the US electoral college system for presidency is obviously an abomination because a person who wins the election, in other words, wins the most votes, can lose the election because he didn't win the electoral college. That's what happened to Hillary Clinton last time, and if Biden somehow doesn't win in all these states, he's going to win the most votes, but he's going to lose the electoral college. For an individual, for the president, that system obviously doesn't work. But the winner-takes-all system also applies in the US for the Congress and Senate, and in the UK for the House of Commons. where the whole legislature is voted winner takes all way, but not by state, but by constituency. That system is also unfair because a party can get, say, 40% of the vote and get 60% of the seats because you have to win the constituency, and all the political parties who put up candidates who lost, those votes are lost. They count for nothing. But the reason why people like the system, they say it gives a stable government. It is easier to manufacture majority. So as I said, you get 40% of the vote, but you get 60% of the seats. And then you don't have to have coalition government. And also, it makes so the argument goes, it makes the members of parliament more accountable because they have a constituency. They want to keep that constituents happy because if they don't, next election, they will be voted out and another person from another party will vote in. So that sounds good, but the problem is it's unfair because smaller parties get wiped out. Say the EFF, they might get 10% of the vote nationally and they won't have any seat in parliament because they didn't win any constituency. And the question about accountability is difficult because if you don't have a competition in a constituency, so if we have an election and the constituency is here in Sea Point where I live, the DA is going to win even if they put up a traffic light as their candidate because this is predominantly a DA constituency. No ANC member or EFF member who stands here is ever going to win. So there's no incentive for that candidate actually to do anything different or be accountable. So some kind of mixture might have to happen. We have to come up with some other system.
Professor de Vos, in many ways, we've had the opportunity of testing different parts of the system when we compare the national election process versus the municipal and local level elections. Do you think that there are lessons that we can learn from both that can guide where to from here, especially as we take on this new ground?
Yes, so it's very difficult because the system we have now at national and provincial level is proportional, so you can't vote for a person, you must vote for a party. That will have to change because the court said individuals who are not members of party must be able to stand. The problem is that there's not really a perfect system. All the systems have flaws, pros and cons. Some of us thought the local government system would be much better because you have best of both worlds. Half the people are voted in constituencies, so you have a ward councillor you can hold accountable. The other half is proportionally represented, so if your party didn't get any votes in a ward, you didn't win any wards, you're still going to get seats because you're going to get them from the proportional side. But if we think now about how local government is operating in South Africa, the question will be, is it really better than the system we have? Are those councillors more accountable?
Absolutely.
Do they do a better job?
And it's an important point to raise, right? And I suppose to take the conversation a bit further, we might be finding a solution, but not to the problem that we fundamentally have. Because if it's really about accountability, the solution to speak to being able to hold even the current office bearers within the current system a lot more accountable than they have been before.
Yeah. Yes, so this is the problem that we don't really know what is going to work properly because some of the problems with our system is political. It's about political dynamics. It's not about the system. I'm just worried that in wanting to have more accountability, we might run to the system that they have in the US and the UK, a winner-takes-all system, which is going to wipe out smaller parties and give the governing party a supermajority, like 70 or 80%. And so that's not necessarily a good solution. So we'll have to try and find maybe something that is not local government system, not the national system, something different. We'll have to think about.
Do you think that if Parliament were to play a more proactive role in holding the executive and the multiple institutions that report to it accountable, that we wouldn't be in the position that we are in now, because often much of the decisions around where processes should go end up being hamstrung by the positions that one has politically. So they mostly tend to rest along the partisan line than on what is actually right to do for the country.
Yes, so that is the Constitutional Court said the same thing in the judgment about the secret ballot for the impeachment of the president. And the problem is that it's very difficult to make the members of parliament hold the executive accountable, especially when one party is dominant and its leaders are in the executive, in government. It's not in the interest of those MPs to be too rude to the ministers, because those ministers are also within the party really their bosses. They are in the NEC or the top 6 or whatever. And so they depend for their political survival either to be on a party list, or if there's going to be first past the post, winner takes all, to be the candidate for the party in that constituency. And so they must keep the leaders on side, and if they are too aggressive in holding the executive accountable, they are not going to be for long in parliament. They're going to be removed by the party and with another candidate, and placed with another candidate.
Of course, Professor de Vos, it sounds like a clear way to solve this problem is just to have better, candidates coming through from the political parties, but also having political parties who are accountable and who take responsibility then for some of the weaknesses that take place under their watch.
Yes, so that would be helpful if they would hire go into politics, but it's such a dirty business that it's probably not that attractive. It would also help if opposition political parties were much better at their job, in the sense that if they were better at winning votes, because if there's more competition, that's where the competition at the election time, and not necessarily the accountability inside Parliament, is what hold the executive accountable. But the problem is, in South Africa, opposition parties do not get many votes. The main opposition party get 20%. That's hopeless. That's not a strong opposition. So they maybe need to think about how they can win 40 or 50% or 48% of the vote. Then there will be real accountability.
I tell you, the one thing I am grateful for is the IEC. I don't think, I've ever appreciated them fully until seeing what is going on in the United States in this election.
That is correct. I must say, the US system, my hair stands on end. It looks so completely unsecured and so unplanned. I don't know how they manage it without a riot.
Absolutely. Constitutional law expert, Professor Pierre de Vos, thank you so much for your time tonight.